this is when I lived on Cypress Parkway still. Pull on a Cypress Parkway, realized that there was sticks, trash, all the things, right, covering. And so I went out there and, I bent down and I was pulling it out, and this kid, intentionally obviously, just I mean, I was soaked. I'm like, I had to laugh. What else could I do? And I thought I would have done the same thing.
Just about 10 years ago.
And Kristen's laughing her ass. It was.
I don't think there's anybody who hasn't been in at least one, if not multiple, awkward situations. You just can't help it.
Right.
It's part of life.
Chief, it really took you 2 weeks to get your pathology report back. That's going to drive me crazy.
It did me too.
It took Carolyn that long too. It did not take, at least 2 weeks. I think she called after 2 weeks. It only took me a few days. So
They told me, if you don't hear anything in 2 weeks, go to our portal. Did they tell you that? And I'm like,
No, I want to hear a voice.
yeah.
Don't do portals.
You're cutting things off my nose. Like,
Yeah,
I
they're
want to
really
know
good
what's
about-
going on.
They're really good about expecting payment right away, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He said you needed to push one button, and that's it.
Yep, and it did crash too. So it's
Oh, no.
Portals aren't fun. We've got one for our kids, and it's like, it says stop lights
There's
from
a
all
lot
kinds
of stuff.
They
Yeah.
say you want to join the portals.
So at
Marlene, I'm like,
14th Street, on the south side of 14th Street, that
It's a flagpole.
flagpole is broken
There's that.
in all this wind. I'm sure you know that the lights at 19th Street are flashing. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. It's been windy crazy.
Oh, we ain't got nothing here. We need to go up north. I came through Bethany, came down through Hamilton down here. I mean, there's so much water in the street that it'll stop a car.
it hailed here pretty good.
Yeah, we
We
did.
didn't
I
have any
took
hail.
some
It came down
pictures
the
there
sheets up there.
My daughter's.
I was
Yeah.
gonna break my windshield.
We had
His regular board meeting.
Just wait.
Just wait, you don't know him or not, just wait.
Just test
So is
it.
the facilitator gonna come look?
Okay, go ahead and mute.
Are they coming or are they just attending via Zoom?
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cindy is not here this evening. She's at a continuing education conference. Sheila, have you had a chance to take roll?
I have, everyone is present, and you have a quorum.
We have two public hearings scheduled this evening and one personal appearance. The first item this evening is a public hearing to receive comments on proposed text amendment to the Code of Ordinances that would allow backyard chickens, specifically hens, on a single-family residential lot. If you wish to speak for or against the proposed text amendment change, I'll have you come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. The floor is open for public comment and public input. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Emily Porter. Our address is 2102 Foxtail Drive. We just recently moved here, so I'm kind of learning all
Sure.
about the regulations and rules regarding chickens, so that's why I'm here to talk. We specifically chose a larger lot so that we could have a few chickens. We have little kids in our family, so I think it'd just be a good little learning opportunity for them to have that kind of pet. I think it's a reasonable request to allow backyard chickens with certain limitations as outlined in the Zoning and Planning Commission meeting last week. At least the things that I heard I thought were great regarding like 4 to 6 and certain lot sizes. I think that's great. Any responsible pet owner is tasked to take care of their pets appropriately, which includes keeping coops clean. I know there was a concern in the planning and zoning meeting about dogs barking at the chickens and that being a problem. But our home backs up to the walking trail, so I can say, at least for me personally, the dogs are barking all the time anyways. And I think being able to utilize your property without worrying about a neighboring pet, it would be great, because it's not a pet. It also has been said that people are already keeping chickens within city limits. I don't know about that, again, we're new. But for the zoning and planning meeting last week, there was apparently one complaint about chickens in the city. But it didn't include that the chickens were a nuisance, it just said that there were chickens. So I think that that's pretty telling that if there's already chickens here, not great because they're not following the rules, but if there's not a big nuisance with them already, then I think that's a great green light to just go ahead and let other people do that as well. And that's all. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope to see a change in the current regulations.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to come and share your thoughts with your elected officials.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Have a good evening. Do we have anybody online?
Nobody online, but I wanted to let the board know that we received emails. Staff received 3 emails in support of chickens and made copies for you at DS.
Great. All right, seeing nobody else move, I will close the floor for public comment and input. Next item is a Public Works Week proclamation. Sheila, if you could read the proposed proclamation, then it would be my honor to present it to our Public Works Director, Shelley Daniel, and our City Engineer, Lauren Snyder.
A proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week, May 18th through 24th, 2025 in Kearney, Missouri. Whereas the City of Kearney's Public Works team plays a vital role in providing infrastructure and services essential to creating sustainable, resilient communities and ensuring public health, safety, and a high quality of life for residents and visitors alike. And whereas the dedicated employees of the city's Public Works Department exemplify integrity, professionalism, and commitment, often working behind the scenes, around the clock, and in all weather conditions to ensure that residents and visitors can travel safely and efficiently by car, bicycle, and foot throughout Kearney, deliver safe, reliable, and continuous drinking water, and protect water quality and public health by treating the city's wastewater before safely returning it to the environment. And whereas these essential services depend on the expertise and dedication of our Public Works team, who are responsible for building, maintaining, and improving our city's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems that are essential for our citizens. And whereas the theme for 2025 National Public Works Week, Advancing Quality of Life for All, emphasizes the vital role Public Works staff play in building healthier, more vibrant, and resilient communities. And this year marks the 65th annual observance of National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Randy Pogue, Mayor, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th through 24th, 2025 as National Public Works Week in the city of Kearney. I encourage all residents to recognize and appreciate the invaluable contributions of our public works professionals who work tirelessly to protect our health, ensure our safety, and advance the quality of life in Kearney.
Thank you very much. If I could have Shelley and Lauren meet myself and the board over here, I'll officially present you the original proclamation and we'll get a photo opportunity. But what a cool theme for this year's week, advancing quality of life for everybody. So I think our Public Works team do just that, and excited to show you guys some appreciation. Next item on the agenda this evening is our open public comments. Are there any residents that live inside the city limits of Kearney that would wish to address your board this evening? Move on to the next item on the agenda, the consent agenda. Does the board have any items of discussion or questions on the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, if we can entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to ordinances. The first ordinance this evening is a motion approving bill number 26, 2025, presented by Shelley Daniel, our Public Works Director, an ordinance approving the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission cost share and surface transportation block grant agreement for the 19th Street and Route 33 intersection. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. This ordinance is to approve the MoDOT funding agreement for the 19th and Route 33 intersection improvements. The agreement includes both the cost share funds of approximately $1.25 million and $924,000 of the STPG funds. This project is part of the larger project of the 19th Complete Street project that you guys considered at the last meeting for the funding agreement. And both projects will be let in combination and treated as one project. So.
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, when that gets for bid, it's not two separate bids, it's just all one big bid.
It's one bid, but it's being designed as two projects to keep track of the different funding sources.
But will it be the same contract on both ones?
Yeah, it'll just be one project.
One bid,
But it'll have to be project numbers just to keep track of the counting of the funds.
yeah, but we're not two different contracts.
No, we're always going to call it the 19th Street Complete Street project.
Perfect.
If there are no other questions from the board, if we could read the proposed ordinance on the first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission cost share and surface transportation block grant agreement for the 19th Street and Route 33 intersection.
Make a motion to approve on first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission cost share and surface transportation block grant agreement for the 19th Street and Route 33 intersection.
Move to approve on second reading.
Second.
Poll the board, please.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman King,
Aye.
Alderman Lehman,
Aye.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and ordinance passes on the second reading. The next item for consideration this evening is a motion approving bill number 27, 2025, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director, an ordinance amending Chapter 205 Animal Regulations pertaining to the keeping of backyard hens. David?
Yeah, so at a meeting a couple months ago in March, the board asked us to revisit an ordinance that would allow backyard chickens. So we pulled up an ordinance that was prepared about a year and a half ago, made some updates, and presented that to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A copy of the ordinance is in your packet. So it established some criteria for the keeping of backyard chickens. So it would allow only hens, not hens that crow, no roosters, basically quiet birds. They must be kept in a coop at all times, and there's a setback requirement from side and rear property lines. So behind the house, in from the property lines. You've got to keep your feed, water, bedding, waste, and other items associated with hens sanitary. Can't create a nuisance, and not allowed to raise the hens for commercial purposes. So it's raising the eggs for you and your family to enjoy. I'm at the Planning and Zoning Commission last week. They made some comments and recommendations of the ordinance to add a minimum lot size of at least 1/4 acre, and then allow up to 6 hens, which would be similar to a state ordinance pertaining to homeowners associations, where homeowners associations can't prohibit chickens up to 6 at a property. So in the packet, we can copy that ordinance for your consideration.
Alderman, I think you've got a report, David. Alderman Lehman, our planning and zoning liaison. Do you have anything to add there?
The only thing I'd add is that there was a significant amount of discussion on the nuisance provision or prevention part of the ordinance. It was brought up multiple times that we're talking about city lots of at least 1/4 acre, and if your neighbor has 6 hens and you've got a dog that likes to bark, then you get turned in to the police department or animal control for a dog that continually barks. Who's going to be receiving the warning or the citation? And it was said in Public Works, or the Planning and Zoning Commission, that it would be the owner of the dog. And so there was a lot of discussion amongst the commissioners that, the dogs may or may not bark normally, but with the chickens causing them to bark, why should the owner of the dog owner be penalized because the chickens are causing the dog to bark? So there was lots of discussion on that. There was some discussion, this ordinance does not require a permit. The previous ordinance that we saw as a board had a permitting requirement on it. So there was a very lengthy discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and ultimately the Planning and Zoning Commission was split 4-2 vote to bring it to the Board of Aldermen. So
Appreciate that report. Any questions from the board to staff or P&Z liaison?
I do. First of all, how many cats are you allowed to have?
I think we allow up to 4, well,
So,
or a combination of dogs and cats.
so those are normal pets, so why are we allowing 6 chickens? That's my question. I mean, I understand 4 chickens, that's coincides with our cat, dog ordinance. And my other question is, like I said before, I'm not really against chickens in the backyard, it's just that we gotta have the right size lots in. I question whether 0.25 acres is big enough lot because of, like I said, the dogs, the different things. Was there any talk of going to like 1/3 of an acre or something like that? A little bit bigger lots, I mean, because we've got some of those over here on Prospect, we've got Paddock Drive, places like that, those are great places for that, and I got no problem with it at all, but we get into some of these smaller ones, especially if they're in the cul-de-sac lots, the way they are, that, this could be, you know, quarter acre, you put that in a pie of a cul-de-sac, well, that's a little bit different than a quarter acre of a, one that's a regular lot. Was there a discussion about that
Lot
very
size?
thing?
Absolutely, there was.
Well, previously, when we were looking at that, the proposal would have allowed chickens on acreages of half an acre or more. And the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time thought that that would allow, it would limit so much to the number of lots that could have chickens that it was almost prohibitive.
Yeah, but we got some
So they
30
wanted
acre
a
lots.
balance between, you know, allowing chickens on normal, you know, what size of a normal-ish city lot would it be allowed to benefit more than a very limited number of people.
Maybe we compromise and it's in between that half acre and the quarter acre and we go for a third of an acre. I have to say I kind of agree with that comment. That is,
You only have a chicken coop and a run. That's all you need. And you're talking about a space the size of a trampoline, right?
Yeah, but you also gotta have it so much feet from the house, so
15,
much
I
feet
think.
from
You
the,
gotta
from
be
the
15
fence, so,
feet from your property.
so
Is that the,
you get
is that
kind
the
of
coop
limited.
or is that the run? Or is that the whole package?
The whole package set back from,
package, all the edges.
Coop and run set back from the side yard. I mean, and that's just the proposed, you know, it's a proposed ordinance. The board can do some.
Correct.
Potentially make some modifications. Now, it was mentioned at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that there should be approximately 10 square feet per bird
And
size.
6 chickens is recommended just because of, if you have a family of 4 or more, 6 chickens are gonna be producing you enough eggs that you could have at least 1 or 2 eggs a day.
If we have 6 chickens, then we need to have 6 pets. Because these chickens are pets, and our pet ordinance says 4. That's my thing.
I
Just
agree.
to match with that. I mean, I'm hear what you're saying. I'm just saying our pet ordinance says 4. Do we change our pet ordinance to go to 6?
I think it's its own it's its own ordinance. I don't think chickens are really considered pets, but
Well, this young lady back here even said that they'd be great pet. I mean, I think people would look at them as a pet, you know what I'm saying? And I would look at them as a pet if I was a chicken owner. So, I don't know. I mean,
I
these
don't
are things I'm
have
throwing
chickens.
up. I'm just,
so I don't know.
I mean, it's not like everyone is gonna have one. It's not gonna be, I bet at the beginning it would be, sure, a lot of people will start coops and runs and then within 6 months, they'll be like, ah, this is too much work.
So the original ordinance that came to P and Z had 3 chickens on it, correct?
Yes.
And P and Z members thought that 3 was not enough for a family to have enough eggs for a family of 4. And so that's why it came up to 6. That and the state statute says 6.
yeah,
So,
I was just
up to
thinking of
6.
our pet ordinance
Absolutely.
of 4, you know, I mean,
And it is in our animal regulations section, so. David, can you tell us what the other cities around us, what they
A few of them.
require?
Yeah, a few of them. So Smithville allows up to 10. I think it is on any lot, they require a permit, and they require a setback of 50 feet from habitable structure, so neighbors' houses. Maybe your own, no, neighbors' houses. Liberty's ordinance has been around a little bit longer. Looks like theirs is also any single-family lot up to 6. And they have some 10-foot setbacks, and then at least 30 feet from another residential structure. Kansas City allows on any residential lot up to 15 chickens. They don't identify setbacks, but they require at least 100 feet from a habitable structure, unless the neighbors consent to something less than that. Gladstone, looks like Gladstone allows on properties at least 3 acres in size, or you could seek a special use permit if you're less than 3 acres in size. And they allow up to 25 chickens per 20,000 square feet of lot area. So as the lot size goes down, then the number of chickens goes down. They require at least a 30-foot setback. And Excelsior Springs ordinance is the oldest one. It looks like they allow on properties at least 1 acre in size and zoned agriculture up to 15 chickens with some setbacks that apply from neighboring, from property lines and from neighboring structures of 100 feet. 25-foot property line, 100 feet from a neighboring structure.
How many of those cities require permits for?
Smithville, I don't know all of them. Smithville, Liberty, Excelsior Springs. I don't know about Gladstone and Kansas City. I imagine Gladstone probably does if they require a special use permit for less than 3 acres. That's kind of a permit. I don't know about when it's larger. Kansas City, I don't know about.
The thing that,
And also, they're not, Kansas City has a limit of 4 pets. They don't count the chickens as pets. But a lot of HOAs do have limits on how many animals you can have, and most of them are 3. So I don't
What do they
know how
classify
it's
chickens? If they're not pets, what do they classify? I mean,
They just count them as, you can have, just like you can have, grow corn on your lot in Kansas City. It was part of that, urban agriculture.
Livestock.
Like their own category.
Any other questions from staff on the proposed ordinance?
Says ordinance, are we requiring a permit?
The current ordinance does not require, as presented, recommended, does not require a permit.
I know I'm out of order here, but I didn't read your ordinance. But does this pertain to common area in subdivisions that have common ground that don't have, like the villas of Merrimack, or, what I'm getting ready to do at Cottonwood? Because, they could come in and say, well, we've got 0.25 acres back here, and this partially belongs to me because I'm a homeowner, so I'm gonna put some chickens.
But they don't own that land, right?
Homeowners do.
HOA.
That's a good question.
I think they'd have a
It's a
pretty good
slippery
argument for
slope.
it, if they do own it.
that's a real good question.
I think 100 feet is too much.
It just depends
I
if
think
you could say
3
whether they
acres
own
is too
1/10 of it, 1/50th of it. But some of these these HOAs have a lot of land, and I think you could easily come into a situation where you got it where they own 1/4 of an acre or more per person. Hey, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of weird things, okay? And that's the only reason I'm asking. But I think you ought to make something specific in the ordinance to maintenance provided communities that have common land that's owned by the HOA. Because if you don't, believe me, they're gonna come up, they're gonna say, well, our common area here is 2 acres, and we've got 8 houses. So we own 1/4 of an acre apiece. I want to put chickens in my backyard. My guess is that's not what the other neighbors signed on for when they were doing maintenance provided community. And like I said, it sounds stupid. I've seen dumber things. I've had to defend myself on dumber things in the past.
That's really good.
The current ordinance, I don't believe, specifies, it doesn't break down to,
No, we
so
just
where,
assume that the property you own is what you're talking about, so, yeah.
here's my thoughts. Obviously, I don't vote on any ordinances unless I'm a tie-breaking vote. But my thoughts are, I don't consider chickens pets. I don't think that, I know all the communication I've received from residents that are either for it or against it. The ones for it are talking specifically for sustainability purposes, to allow them the opportunity to have chickens to provide eggs for their family, educational, learning, and for food purposes. That being said, I do think there's been some good discussion tonight on some requests, I think, from the board. That being said, if we could, if there's no other questions from the board, we do need to vote on the proposed ordinance. Please keep in mind after the first reading, if there's any modifications or changes you'd like to the ordinance, that's a time where you could read in any of those changes that the board could desire.
Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like to make a motion to table this for legal, because I'd like to get it legally where we can't get sued or something for that HOA thing, because I never thought about what Mr. Porter brought up, but I thought that was a good point. And before I feel comfortable voting on it, I'd like to have legal look at some verbiage on that.
Okay.
My neighborhood has over 30 acres of green space.
The villas,
So we have
yeah.
a
There's lot of
motion
HOAs out there.
to table by Alderman Holt. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
Well, table with legal to look at that. Do I need to make that in the motion to?
We've already made a motion, that's first and seconded,
That's
so,
fine.
and we put it to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? All right, bill number 27/2025 is continued. Next item is a motion approving bill number 28/2025 presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director. An ordinance approving a final plat of cottages at Cottonwood Creek, final plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easement therein. David?
It's ironic that this is up next because this, I think, is the property Mr. Porter just referenced in the previous case. But, so before you is an ordinance approving a final plat of the cottages at Cottonwood Creek, final plat. That's the property at the northwest quadrant of Nation Road and Cottonwood Creek Avenue, which was rezoned last month from commercial to residential for single-family villas. And this plat helps to reestablish the building setbacks. There's a sewer line extension that there's a dedication of an easement for, and then they are dedicating an additional utility easement through the property. Planning and zoning recommended approval, the board approved unanimously. So one lot, basically one lot subdivision.
Alderman Lehman, do you have anything to add?
No, there was very little discussion on this because it's pretty cut and dry. So,
Any questions from the board? If we could read the proposed ordinance first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of cottages at Cottonwood Creek, final plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon.
move to approve on first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of cottages at Cottonwood Creek, final plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Pull the board, please.
Alderman Lehman,
Aye.
Alderman Holt,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman King.
Aye.
Vote is unanimous and ordinance passes on the second reading.
Thank you. Hey, David.
Thank you.
I've got a copy of the CCRs here if you want. I didn't sign them, but Ron said that he thought you wanted a copy.
Next item this evening is a motion approving bill number 29/2025, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director. You're up for your next item.
Okay. This will be final plat for the shops at Kearney, first plat replat of Lot 3E. Final plat, so Lot 3E is the area on the west side of Watson Drive between Club Car Wash to the north and Holiday Place to the south. And the proposal is to subdivide that, it's just short of 5 acres into 3 commercial lots. Final plat, there's no dedication of additional right-of-ways, possibly there's an easement through between 2 of those lots. Again, Staff recommends approval. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval of this plat.
David, you just said that there was no accepting of additional right-of-way, but our language says that in the ordinance, so I just want to be clear.
It's standard, yeah,
Okay.
it's standard language that we have.
So we are or we are not accepting any additional easement or right-of-way.
We will not be accepting additional right-of-way, but they do have a utility easement between the lot to the south and the middle lot.
Okay.
What about the shared access? Isn't that an easement?
It's on there, yes, there's a shared access easement, sorry, between the lot to the north and the middle lot for a shared driveway.
Should we consider modifying the ordinance language then?
I think if you do that, you cannot read it by title only.
Okay.
I think it's fine accepting dedication of right-of-way, even though there's new right-of-way that's being dedicated.
I would like us to consider modifying the ordinance not to include that language, and I guess we're gonna have to read it, the full ordinance. And that's a lesson learned, because I don't know, I don't agree that our ordinance language says that we're accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon if that's not our intention. Does anybody else on the board disagree with me? Okay,
I can read the ordinance in
Okay.
its entirety twice.
please do.
And we're going to modify and take out and accepting dedication of, I'm just gonna take out right-of-way, and is that
Yeah, so because we're accepting dedication of easements, there's no right-of-way.
thereon? Okay. All right.
First reading, full reading, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of the Shops at Kearney First Plat, replat of Lot 3E Final Plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of easements thereon. Whereas Star Acquisitions LLC has proposed the Shops at Kearney First Plat, replat of Lot 3E Final Plat, a subdivision proposing 3 commercial lots with dedication of easements on approximately 4.93 acres. Whereas on May 12, 2025, the Planning and Zoning Commission of Kearney, Missouri held a meeting relative to said final plat and recommended to the Board of Aldermen by a unanimous 6-0 vote that said final plat be approved with certain conditions. And whereas on May 19, 2025, the Board of Aldermen of Kearney, Missouri held a meeting relative to said final plat. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Kearney, Missouri as follows. Section 1. The final plat of Shops at Kearney First Plat, replat of Lot 3E Final Plat, a subdivision of land with 3 commercial lots within the City of Kearney, Clay County, Missouri, will be approved after conditions of approval have been met, required public improvements have been completed, and maintenance bonds and as-built have been accepted, along with the following conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. 1. Submit a revised plat if necessary. 2. City engineer approval of final plat revisions and any changes, modifications, or alterations required by the same to the final plat revisions. 3. Record the final plat within 1 year of alderman approval. 4. Develop the site in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payments of fees and taxes. Section 2. The dedication of street right-of-way and/or easements shown on said final plat will be accepted upon recording of the final plat. Section 3. The mayor is hereby authorized to sign copies of said plat upon confirmation from staff that conditions of approval have been met, required public improvements have been completed, and maintenance bonds have been accepted. Section 4. The developer shall be responsible for filing all legal documents with the Clay County Recorder of Deeds Office and shall return recorded documents to the city clerk to be kept on file by the city. Section 5. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect on after passage by the Board of Aldermen and approval by the mayor. Adopted and approved by the mayor and Board of Aldermen, City of Kearney, Missouri, this 19th day of May, 2025.
Do we have a first vote of approval?
I'll approve.
Section 2 has right-of-way in it, as
So-
read.
Now you can do an amendment, because I read the whole thing.
Right away and/or easement. It's
So if we're not accepting,
Well, the easement needs.
if we're not accepting a right of way, then it should just say the dedication of
Easement.
an easement shown on said final plat will be accepted upon recording of the final plat. Because we're not accepting any right of way.
Correct. So if we could
Yes.
entertain, now that the ordinance has been read in entirety, entertain a motion to modify section 2 to remove street right-of-way and/or to just read the dedication of easements. We had, Dan, could we use your motion as a first with that modification?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Can you go ahead and make one more modification? There was a typo. I read it as it was written in section 5, in full force and effect, and remove on, and just have it be after passage by the Board of Aldermen and approval by the mayor.
So the modification will also be to section 5 and remove, I guess, a Scrivener's error, remove on after the word effect in section 5.
I can add that to my modification.
I think that'll clean up the ordinance here. Okay, so we have a first by Alderman Holt modifying section 2 and section 5, seconded by Alderman Lehman. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Now for the second reading, are you able to do a title only since we modified it?
No, because it hasn't been on file for 24
All right.
hours.
Second reading, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of the Shops at Kearney first plat, replat of Lot 3E, final plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of easements thereon. Whereas Star Acquisitions LLC has proposed the Shops at Kearney first plat, replat of Lot 3E, final plat, a subdivision proposing 3 commercial lots with dedication of easements on approximately 4.93 acres. Whereas on May 12, 2025, the Planning and Zoning Commission of Kearney, Missouri held a meeting relative to said final plat and recommended to the Board of Aldermen by unanimous 6-0 vote that said final plat be approved with certain conditions. And whereas on May 19, 2025, the Board of Aldermen of Kearney, Missouri held a meeting relative to said final plat. Now therefore, be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Kearney, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the final plat of Shops at Kearney first plat, replat of Lot 3E, final plat, a subdivision of land with 3 commercial lots within the City of Kearney, Clay County, Missouri, will be approved after conditions of approval have been met. Required public improvements have been completed, and maintenance bonds and as-built have been accepted, along with the following conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. 1, submit a revised plat if necessary. 2, city engineer approval of final plat revisions and any changes, modifications, or alterations required by the same to the final plat revisions. 3, record the final plat within 1 year of Alderman approval. 4, develop the site in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payments of fees and taxes. Section 2, the dedication of easements shown on said final plat will be accepted upon recording of the final plat. Section 3, the mayor is hereby authorized to sign copies of said plat upon confirmation from staff that conditions of approval have been met, required public improvements have been completed, and maintenance bonds have been accepted. Section 4, the developer shall be responsible for filing all legal documents with the Clay County Recorder of Deeds Office and shall return recorded documents to the city clerk to be kept on file by the city. Section 5, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect after passage by the Board of Aldermen and approval by the mayor.
All right.
I'll make a motion on second reading.
Hold the board, please.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman King.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Vote is unanimous and the ordinance passes modified on the second reading. Next item is a motion approving bill number 30, 2025, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director. An ordinance approving the Shops at Kearney first plat, Lot 3G, site plan as submitted by Les Schwab Tire Center. David?
Yeah, so this application is related to the previous final plat. Les Schwab Tire Center proposes to little over 9,800 square feet, so 9,872,000 square foot building and parking lot improvements on middle lot 3G of the previous plat. Planning and Zoning Commission recommend unanimous approval. Dan McGee is in the audience today, representing the applicant. So Les Schwab Tire Center, they do tires and other minor automobile repairs. Moving into the Kansas City area, they're other north, Dakota, they're in Oregon, California, and they're coming to Kansas City area, and we're one of a handful of different locations that they're proposing.
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board on the proposed ordinance? All right, if we could read the proposed ordinance first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the Shops at Kearney First Plat, Lot 3G site plan as submitted by Les Schwab Tire Center.
Move to approve on first reading.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the Shops at Kearney First Plat, Lot 3G site plan as submitted by Les Schwab Tire Center.
Motion on second reading.
I'll second.
Pull the board, please.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman King.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Alderman Holt.
The vote is unanimous and ordinance passes on the second reading. Thank you, Dan. It was, usually you're working with us direct, but glad to see you helping out Les Schwab, and welcome to the community. We'll move on to resolutions. We have one resolution this evening, a motion approving Resolution 39, 2025, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director, a resolution adopting the 2025 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Cass, Clay, Jackson, Platte, and Ray counties. David?
Yeah, so Mid-America Regional Council goes through a regional hazard mitigation plan process. It helps all the communities in the 5-county area. So if something were to happen, natural hazard wise, everybody in that regional area can seek funding or seek hazard mitigation funding through CEMA, FEMA, and the like. There's been about 12. So there's a list of different communities. There were about 12 that have approved the plan so far. There's another handful of others that are like us, coming in a few weeks later than they are. Staff recommends approval. We went through this process. They do it every 5 years, so 2020, 2015, a few of the board members might remember.
Any questions from the board on the proposed resolution? We could entertain a motion approving Resolution 39, 2025, a resolution adopting the 2025 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Cass, Clay, Jackson, Platte, and Ray counties.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Next item on the agenda this evening, items for review and presentation. We have a bid recommendation, our Pathways, Gaps, and Crossing Project presented by Shelley Daniel, our Public Works Director. Shelley?
So on May 7th, the city received open bids for our Pathways, Gaps, and Crossings project. I have reviewed the bid, and so has Olson, who is our designer. And we only received one bidder, Megan KC, and that bid came in at like $765,725 and exceeded the engineer's estimate of $327,375 by about 234%. And it is also significantly over the budget we have allocated for the project. And we didn't get any competitive bids since we got the sole bidder. Based on these factors, I recommend rejecting this bid in the interest of being fiscally responsible and is to preserve the integrity of the procurement process. I'd also recommend the board have the staff engage with the other prospective contractors to gather feedback on why we had low participation, and whether it was our scope, the timing of our bid, or the market conditions that affected their interest. And then also consider having us revise and re-advertise the bid if we deem that appropriate, to encourage a broader competition and more cost-effective proposals, and also to explore phased implementation strategies, maybe breaking the project up into different projects. I also have other ideas, and a lot of our work is on 19th Street, which is right in the middle of our complete street project, so it makes sense for us to possibly pull that work out and add it to that future project and take advantage of the grant funding. So with that, I just make that recommendation for you to consider. And on the agenda, I do have a sample motion. I don't know if I'm supposed to read that. No, just have it here for the board to consider.
Yeah, thank you for that report, Shelley. It's not often we run into these challenges, I'll say, but I don't know if it's because it's a small project or what, but I appreciate you and staff being willing to look into it and see what we can do here to hopefully get better results. I do appreciate the sample motion. I don't have any concerns or issues with the motion, but if we could, somebody could entertain the motion. I'll read the sample motion. A motion to reject the sole bid submitted by Mega Casey for the Pathways, Gaps, and Crossings project and direct city staff to consult with contractors regarding the limited bid response, consider revising and re-advertising the project if appropriate, and explore phased implementation strategies.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? I think that gives you the orders you're looking for. Thank you so much for that report. Next item, also presented by Shelley Daniel, our Public Works Director, an update on the 162nd and Nation Road TEAP study. And before I give you the floor there, Shelley, I will say the first email that I received as mayor on this intersection was from then county resident Mark Thomas, sharing some concerns about the safety and lack of visibility and all the things at this intersection, Chief. And I think
I am persistent, sir.
at that time, I can't remember if you were still an employee of the Highway Patrol or where, but I reminded him that things do not move fast in government, even in small local government. So as you can see, we've been working on it, almost 8 years later, but we're still working on it. So Shelley, you got the floor.
The city of Kearney and Clay County has received multiple citizen concerns about the safety of the 162nd and Nation Road intersection. So the city, in partnership with the county, was successful in obtaining a traffic engineering assistant program grant from the Missouri Department of Transportation. The study focused on the T intersection of Nation Road and 162nd Street in the city of Kearney that is also owned and maintained by both the city and the county. Olson Incorporated was selected to perform the intersection safety and operational analysis, and Jeremy Stretz, from their traffic group leader for the Kansas City area, is here to present the findings and recommendations. Jeremy has 15 years of traffic engineering experience and is a registered professional traffic operations engineer and a roadway safety professional. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Jeremy to go through this presentation. Jeremy?
All right, well, thank you, and thanks for having me out here. How do we control the slides?
Just let me know, yeah.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and go to the next one. And we'll just show a little outline of, Shelley did a great job of outlining what the project entailed and where the funds came from and where the request came from, I guess, basically. So really just kind of a roadmap of what we're going to talk a little about today is just the existing conditions that we found out there. What was conducted as part of the TEAP process was called a road safety audit. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll also look at what some proven safety countermeasures are that are available to us to review and assess maybe some safety and other improvements that are out there that we could look at to address these conditions that were found at the intersection, and then a summary and maybe some next steps to get into that. It kind of, as Shelley outlined, the intersections, 162nd and Nation Road, city and county maintained facility. It's kind of the northwest side of Kearney, and you can see from the slide kind of an overview, top-down view of the existing conditions and kind of the signing that's present at the intersection, as well as some approach slopes and grades that are at the intersections. It's a T intersection where Nation Road comes into a T at 162nd Street. There is a horizontal change in 162nd Street. As you're traveling east and west, the road kind of shifts to the south if you're headed eastbound, or to the north if you're going westbound. Speeds on that facility are 45 miles an hour, but they are signed with advisory speed conditions for a couple of different warning signs to supplement those advisory speed conditions. As you can see, the eastbound direction has a curve warning sign with a 20-mile-an-hour plaque, and apologies, the image is a little bit small and grainy, but that's kind of as you approach the intersection from the west and are heading eastbound, you see that sign. The next sign you see is an intersection warning sign as you're going down a steep grade and kind of assessing that horizontal curve, kind of moving through that reverse curve. From the west, you see a couple of different signs as well, none of which address the reverse curve, but there are a couple of signs associated with a hill that blocks the view, and a bus stop, as well as an intersection warning sign. As you go westbound through the intersection, you again have to navigate that reverse curve, as well as go down the hill and back up a steep grade on the west side of the intersection of Nation Road. Northbound Nation Road, the city has added advanced stop signs that aren't shown on the image, but the speed limit is 35 miles an hour approaching the intersection, and the stop sign is located at the intersection there. As part of a review, some data was collected. This critical data included reviewing some crash history at the intersection, as well as collecting speed data. The speed data was collected about 1,000 foot west of Nation Road along 162nd Street to assess the speed of drivers that are coming into that intersection, particularly from the west, as that was noted as a location of concern, as well as some vehicle count information was included with that speed data, but also some vehicle count information was taken at the intersection itself as part of a previous project the city had done. And that was provided to us to review operations. You can see from the crash history, this is 10 years worth of crash history from 2015 to I think 2024 was the last available data input from MoDOT's crash history website. Summary of that data is, there were 3 northbound angle crashes that occurred. The 3 that you see there resulted in property damage only, but they were northbound vehicles aiming to turn left and go west on 162nd Street. There were also six crashes after we were getting into some of the crash reports and seeing the crash summaries that were associated with out-of-control vehicles, which can sometimes be attributed to speeds. So again, looking then at that next step of the speed data information that was collected on the west side of the intersection, a typical metric for traffic engineering is to look at the 85th percentile speeds. That's often what times we look at that speed threshold to set a posted speed limit or assess whether the drivers are conforming to that posted speed condition. What that really shows is that 85% of the drivers are comfortable driving at that speed of 49.5 miles an hour as they're headed eastbound towards the intersection on the west side of the intersection. So again, not not showing much regard for the posted speed limits as approaching the intersection. Operations, which aren't shown, we did analyze the stop control condition at the intersection to assess whether vehicles are experiencing undue delay due to traffic volumes at the intersection. That wasn't found to be an issue. Operationally, vehicles are waiting less than 15 seconds to make a turning movement off of that intersection, off of Nation Road to turn onto 162nd Street. That would be driver's level of acceptance, like we typically assign that to a letter grade, level service A, grade, you wait less than 10 seconds at any location. This would be associated with level service B, which is pretty easy to navigate intersection once you can get there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The next piece, again, so after having all the data that we collected and kind of compiling that, we conducted a road safety audit. This was really just a new terminology coined to kind of associate with a group of multidisciplinary individuals coming together to assess the safety and operational conditions at an intersection. So we sit down in a room, we gathered PD staff, city staff, county staff, as well as some residents to go talk through the summary of findings from the data collection effort, gather their feedback on what they see at the intersection on a daily basis, and then go out to the intersection to actually conduct some additional data collection, reviewing site distance, making sure that we got the approach signing correct, and gathering information on the geometrics of the roadway conditions themselves. The key findings of that road safety audit were, again, people agreed with the speed data results that we were seeing. You know, excessive speed was a consistent, brought up as a concern at the intersection, particularly along 162nd Street, and then sight distance constraints, which if you go to the next slide, I think are illustrated a little bit better here. The location of the stop sign actually exacerbates the limiting sight conditions that are associated with vehicles stopping on Nation Road, trying to assess whether there's a gap in traffic along 162nd Street. And what you can see is that there's the vegetation in that southwest quadrant of the intersection contributes to limiting sight conditions at the intersection and having vehicles having a difficult time seeing eastbound vehicles as they approach the intersection. This, in conjunction with the geometry of the roadway and the downgrades as they approach the intersection, contributes to the intersection sight distance ultimately not being met at the intersection. Even if you were to stop pretty close to the edge of roadway, 14.5 foot back from the edge of travelway along 162nd Street, we find that vegetation does limit your ability to see eastbound vehicles approaching the intersection. The stopping sight distance, which is a critical metric from the Highway Design Manual and the Astro Green Book, is met across here. So vehicles, even if a northbound vehicle were to inadvertently pull out into the intersection, there is enough sight distance that vehicles traveling along 162nd Street at the posted speed limit of 40 miles an hour to assess that condition, hit their brakes and decelerate at a comfortable rate, stopping before they would impact a vehicle pulling out of Nation Road. But again, that intersection sight distance is typically considered a critical component of intersection.
Would the same be true at the 85th or 95th percentile speed?
85th or, those speeds are a little bit above what that threshold would be. That number was, I think, right at, I'd have to look, but it would be a little bit more difficult for that to be met. I don't have off the top of my head whether that does meet or not, but.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good to know if we're talking 85% of the vehicles through there exceed the posted speed limit. I don't care what the speed limit is. If there's enough distance for the speed limit, I want to know. Yeah, I think that tells us that's an important factor we need to know.
Yeah. You can go to the next slide. So we have kind of the facts laid out in front of us and some of the issues, again, prevailing speed, and limiting sight distance. What are some of the tools that we would use to improve safety and operations at this intersection? FHWA, the Federal Highway Association, puts out some documentation for similar types of facilities. Some of these low-cost countermeasures can include making signage improvements and striping improvements along both the through lanes or the non-stop condition as well as on the stop condition. So you can see some of those things listed there. Things like oversized signing, flashing beacons, retroreflective sheeting on the posts. All these things are used to draw drivers' attention to the conditions at the intersection, that there's an intersection approach and that there's an advisory speed condition that drivers should adhere to, as well as improved pavement markings, properly located stop bars, the trimming of vegetation, and warning signing at the T intersection can sometimes help those run off the road crashes. In their experience with applying these safety countermeasures, they've seen reductions in up to 10% of fatal and injury crashes. They've seen a reduction of that, as well as 15% reduction in nighttime crashes. We didn't see a significant contribution of nighttime crashes because this intersection actually does have a street light at the southeast quadrant of the intersection. A lot of these intersections similar to these don't have lighting, and sometimes that can be a recommended countermeasure if you see a high prevalence of nighttime crashes. And then, an average cost benefit of 12 to 1, basically. So moving on to the next slide, some of these things that jumped out to us, again, as high priority and medium priority, high priority ones maybe showing up in that orange highlight of like adding some oversized advanced warning signs at the intersection to warn drivers that there is an intersection consistently from both directions of traffic, as well as providing flashing beacons to make sure that that signing is catching their eye, especially the supplemental warning signs for the posted speed limit or the advisory speed condition. Retroreflective sheeting, again, another element that's used to enhance visibility of those sign structures. And then improving pavement markings to delineate those road edges. That's more of a critical component from one of the other pieces of information that we gathered that while we were out there on the road safety audit is the driver's stop sign is placed about 60 foot back from the edge of pavement. Again, I mentioned the maximum visibility for drivers is located, 14 and a half foot back from the edge of travelway. That's where they would anticipate a driver to stop to get the best visibility of vehicles traveling along 162nd Street. So we need to do something to move that stop sign and that stop location up. One piece of that would be to enhance the pavement markings to delineate the roadway. And then, on the stop approach, again, placing the stop bar appropriately, removing vegetation and obstructions that limit line of sight, and then adding some warning sign on the stem of the T intersection to let drivers know that they have to make a turning movement at this T intersection once they get up to the intersection to reduce some of those runoff road crashes. The next slide kind of shows some of those recommendations on practice and laid out on an intersection aerial itself. You can see some of the advanced warning signs along 162nd Street would indicate that there are two conditions that drivers actually need to be aware of. One of them is the reverse curve as you're traveling through that intersection. The second one being the intersection itself that is centered along that reverse curve, providing some consistent advisory warning signs that drivers may be more convinced to follow, I guess, if it's a little bit closer to their 85th percentile speed, but also provides a safety improvement for drivers that are trying to get into the traffic stream from Nation Road. And then really better defining the intersection with some pavement markings and potentially removing that unnecessary pavement along the southeast quadrant of the intersection. That's really what's causing the stop sign to be located so far south of the intersection, is there's nowhere to put the stop signing without it being kind of floating in the sea of pavement that's at the intersection. So either doing that by creating this more defined intersection through striping and pulling that stop sign and stop bar up to the appropriate location where drivers can get the visibility that they need, are some of those things. Some things that aren't shown are trimming the vegetation along that southwest quadrant. I think the city has already coordinated with the property owner that's there to make some of those adjustments to the vegetation, and I think that they've made significant improvements to the line of sight of the intersection if you've been out since that's been done. But some of that still remains maybe outside of their right-of-way, which is more difficult to have control over. And then some additional steps or things that aren't shown in this image that could be kind of a next step is chevron signing, again, further delineating the reverse curvature of 162nd Street through the intersection, and you can add dual signs to further enhance the visibility of the warning signs. At this point, we're just recommending some oversized signs with flashing beacons as a starting point. And with those things in mind, I think that would help address some of the safety concerns with the intersection. Next slide is just questions. We can go back if you want. We'd rather look at the actual summary recommendations. But
Thank you for that report. Does anybody on the board have any questions on the report presented this evening?
So this was just a fact finding. There's no recommendation as far as corrective actions, correct?
They had several recommendations at the end, compared to like the cost benefit, like the crash. They have some, you go back.
I think what Alderman Lehman's referring to this evening is there's no official or recommendation. There's nothing to us in approval form to make any of these safety improvements. Is that what you're referring to, Alderman Lehman?
That and funding obviously is an issue here too, so.
This grant is for engineering assistance for like just going and trying to see if you have a project. And if we want to keep pursuing this, we would have to have a separate project. And there's some things like the signs, like you look at that intersection, Clay County maintains everything west of 160 Nation Road. And Kearney does east, and we do Nation Road. And over the years, it wasn't really clear on who took care of the signs. It was just like the pavement, and so now we're just doing the whole roadway, and they're doing the whole roadway. So they're doing the signs too. So I think there's a little clearer understanding of who takes care of what now.
With the board's desire, I would like to see staff continue to have discussions with Clay County and see if we can get some recommendations and potential cost on what it would cost Kearney taxpayers to improve this intersection with some of the recommendations, countermeasures here. I think it'd be worthwhile and something we should still spend some time on.
I do have a question. If we remove the unnecessary pavement on the,
Southeast corner there.
yeah, I was trying to get my directions there. Would that then allow that stop sign to be moved up closer to the stop bar?
that's correct.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking with like a little pork chop.
Yeah,
I think how like we did
or
it
something
at
so that we can get it
Casey's,
up closer to the,
I was thinking that too.
yeah. Rather than the stop sign being way back here and, it's not up there, but.
I'm no traffic engineer, but somebody that's driven that intersection hundreds of times, I do think that's the root cause of
Yeah,
the northbound accidents going to eastbound is because they have to stop
so far back.
so far back, and then they
They
think, oh, I've stopped, I can't see anything, and go, and then
Mm.
boom.
Because of
Yeah.
both the grade and being, but if we could take this out and move the stop sign up so that we've got better visibility both sides, that would be, to me, that would be, a lot of cars, they get it, don't stop at a stop sign, they'll stop at the stop bar. Some of them don't stop anyway, but,
So if you want us to look at, like, what it would take to implement what's being shown on that picture, I could leave with that action.
Yeah, if the board has the same desire I do, I would like to see the cost estimates of kind of, and maybe if you could even total and then break it out per recommendation here.
Yeah, and perhaps since Clay County
exactly.
does some of this, I think they need to be a part of this conversation
Cost share.
and a part of, the
They
solution.
have been at the table, they pay half of the local match on this study. And however, if you look at the intersection, the only thing on that they would be responsible for is the one sign.
On the west side.
One
Yes.
sign.
Well, because, I mean, most of this would be pretty simple for us to do, except for moving some pavement. So I mean, it's not really,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Alderman Spencer, you may or may not remember that, we do a lot of things here, but I did go to a county meeting with our city administrator and presented kind of our concerns here. And Presiding Commissioner Nolte and his associate commissioners were very gracious and I think listened to us well, and I think their staff has worked well with our staff to this point, so. Very well, sir. Thank you so much for your time and efforts, and we appreciate you being here this evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to mayor's communications. A couple things I want to mention this evening is I want to share some appreciation to one of our street department employees, Mr. Zach Coldren. He was, I think it was Mother's Day, actually. He was, I noticed a Facebook social media post from Wabash Barbecue in Excelsior Springs. Unfortunately, had a fire in their smokehouse while he was there. Zach happens to be a volunteer firefighter in Lathrop where he lives, and took it upon himself to provide his services, and Mr. McCullough and the owners of Wabash shared that with me. So we've got a lot of great employees working for the city of Kearney, but so I wasn't surprised to hear that one of our own on their own time stepped in and helped out, but appreciate Zach and his efforts there. This evening on the way home, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we got like 2.5 inches of rain in no time. So we need the rain, not all at once, but I will tell you, Chief, I think it was Detective Westerfield. He was all bundled up in a raincoat. But if not, it was whoever was driving his cruiser. There is a drain that is notorious for getting clogged up with leaves, brush, all the things on, I guess, northbound 33, it's right before Southbrook Parkway. And he was out there in the rain clearing that drain because there was probably 2 inches of standing water over 33 highway there. So once again, we've got great employees staffed here at the city of Kearney, and he could have driven on by and not cared, but he took the time to solve that issue, so I appreciate that as well. That concludes my mayor's communications this evening. We'll move on to the city administrator's report.
The only thing I have is just a reminder that our next board meeting will be Monday, June 2nd at 6:30 PM.
We'll move on to Alderman discussion. Alderman King.
I don't have anything.
Alderman Spencer.
I would just like to say a huge congratulations to all our Kearney graduates. I wish them all the best. I believe they have a bright future ahead of them.
School year's already winding down. I can't believe it.
Gosh,
Does that conclude your report? All right.
it does.
Alderman Lehman.
I just wanted to, just a quick kudos to city and city staff. It's great to see businesses like Les Schwab, especially when they're coming from way out of state, consider Kearney, a little town of Kearney, to be something that they're interested in expanding in the Midwest, and it shows that Kearney's on the map. And we're open for business, and we're open for new businesses. We've got a new apartment building coming. So it's exciting to see the growth that we want to see both in our downtown area and new businesses. So, and to piggyback off of the mayor's comments, I was actually over at Wabash this weekend. They didn't have what I usually get because of the fire in the smokehouse, but I've known the owner for a considerable amount of time, and he came over and expressed his sincere appreciation for Zach and how Zach grabbed the fire extinguisher and went out there and kept the fire at bay as much as he could with the fire extinguisher until the fire department got there. So it's nice to see our city employees doing good things when they're there eating with their family. So makes us proud. So that's all I have.
Alderman Holt?
I want to thank our police department for our vandalism incident at the park. But also, that was put on Facebook, and the response that we got from our community about taking care of our parks was really great.
Yeah.
I was glad to see that. We take pride in our parks, and we think it's great, but to hear our citizens who live here talk about how proud they are of our parks really shows that we spend our money wisely, did what we need to do for our community, and it was appreciated. It's always bad to hear that you get a youth or somebody to, they think it's fun to tear something up, and it does.
3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what, one person said, this is why we can't have nice things. But I thought it was nice that we had so many of our citizens come out and really brag on the city and for the police that they wanted them to make, so that this won't happen again. So kudos to you, thank you for posting that. And I was just real proud of our citizens. I just wanted to share that.
Great. That concludes Alderman discussion and our posted agenda items this evening. So with that, if we can entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for being here, and everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
But strangely, I usually get smoked turkey. Didn't have it. Didn't have it. Yeah, it burnt turkey, crispy turkey, but no smoked turkey.
That's your neighbor right. These houses, I'm in my yard real close to these people. They're coming here about a week. See, that's what, so when you move bigger than. Maybe, but I don't even know.
I did too. I was wondering if he's gonna bang his gavel.
I know, I don't know.
Wonder what the percentage
Because he has before. Anyway,
meet the.
yeah, that was a precedent that shouldn't have been set.